Today on Who is That Saint? We meet the monk who didn't want to go to England, went anyway, and ended up converting a king and changing a country. Saint Augustine of Canterbury was the first Archbishop of Canterbury, the apostle to the English, and proof that God uses reluctant missionaries to do miraculous things. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by what God's asking you to do, Augustine is here to remind you. Obedience matters more than confidence. It's the late 6th century. Rome is rebuilding after the fall of the empire, and Pope Gregory the Great is dreaming of something wild, sending missionaries to the Anglo-Saxons. The Pope had seen fair-haired English slave boys in the Roman market and famously said, "Not angels but angels." He never forgot them. So he sends Augustine, a monk and prior of his own monastery, to lead a team across Europe to pagan England. Augustine is not thrilled. Halfway there he asks Gregory if they can turn back. Gregory writes back, "Absolutely not. Keep going." In 597, Augustine lands in Kent, in what's now southeast England. The local king Ethelbert is a pagan. But his wife, Queen Bertha, is a Christian from France, and she's been quietly holding down the spiritual fort. Thanks to her influence, Ethelbert allows Augustine and his monks to preach. He listens. And then to everyone's surprise he converts. Thousands follow him. Augustine is suddenly not just surviving in England, he's leading a revival. With the king's support, Augustine sets up shop in Canterbury and begins building churches and forming clergy. He restores old Christian sites that had been destroyed or abandoned. He organizes converts. And he writes back to Pope Gregory asking what on earth to do with all these new Christians. Gregory gives him 2 bits of timeless advice. Adapt what's good in local culture and don't expect perfection overnight. Soon, Augustine is named the first Archbishop of Canterbury, a position that still exists today, nearly 1,500 years later. But not everyone was thrilled to see him. The Celtic Christians, especially those in Wales and Ireland, had their own traditions. They weren't under Rome's authority and didn't plan to change that for some monk from the continent. Augustine tried to bring them into unity with Rome. He called meetings. He made appeals. It didn't go well. At one meeting, the Celtic bishops were offended that Augustine didn't rise to greet them. They left. No deal. The rift between Celtic and Roman Christianity would last for decades. Augustine died around 604, just a few years after he arrived in England. But what a few years. He baptized thousands, built the foundations of the English Church, started monasteries, converted royalty, and earned the title Apostle to the English. Not bad for someone who wanted to quit before he ever got started. Today, Saint Augustine of Canterbury is the patron saint of England, missionaries, those facing overwhelming tasks. And he's a reminder that God doesn't always call the eager. He calls the obedient. Saint Augustine didn't set out to become a spiritual giant. He just said yes, again and again, even when it was hard, uncomfortable, and full of uncertainty. If God's asking you to do something that scares you, take a lesson from Augustine. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to go. Quote of the day. We don't have many surviving words from Augustine, but Pope Gregory the Great, who sent him, once said, "He who would climb to a lofty height must go by steps, not leaps." Saint Augustine took those steps, and helped an entire nation find its footing in Christ.